Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Sports Wrap. Yes, the show that now we'll talk about more than just hockey and a whole lot more. We're going to have soccer, and we'll also welcome a new soccer analyst, a guy that even remembers the high school I went to back at home in Metro Detroit. His name is Roger Faulkner. Raj and I go back to the 70s. You know, he even said before we went on, you can put the hat back on. Because back then I had a lot of hair. It was all brown. Now there's a lot more gray and a lot more gray than it was back then. Roger, welcome to being on Sports Wrap tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure.
You have a chance to reminisce a little bit. Roger and I go back. One of the guys that was on Sports Wrap for a while, George Eichhorn, and I and Roger, we go back a long ways. And when I talk about the 70s, that is a long time. A lot of people I know go that. And we have Cody Spink on the show. Welcome back, Code.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here and happy to talk more about soccer and hockey.
Yeah, I thought you got tongue-tied there, but I knew it would come out sooner or later. And last but not least, the guy that keeps pushing me for World Cup tickets and all that is Mike Santos. Talk to him. Don't talk to me about it. He knows more. I don't know how many people he knows now, but he's a part of this soccer stuff.
I know. I'm pretty excited. We had last week's show was Ronaldo's 41st birthday, and this week we get Roger. So that's pretty.
Not often I'm mentioned in the same breath as Ronaldo.
Yeah, probably get Roger. I'm looking forward to have Roger on more often. Anyways, all right. We have a couple hockey topics I want to get to right away, and then we'll get to all the soccer stuff because there's a fair amount to get to. Well, one of your favorite goaltenders, Cody John Gibson, who joins Chris Osgood as the only other goaltender in Detroit Red Wings history to record multiple 8-game winning streaks in a single season. That's a pretty good bit of company there joining Chris Osgood, Cody.
I mean, I always knew he was a very good goalie.
Cody,
he was
having.
Hello? Let's see. Am I having issues here?
I can hear you fine, Cody.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. No, I always knew Gibson was going to be a great goalie. He was just on a very low-end Ducks team for years, and I feel like once he got to the, he probably just needed a change of scenery and have the right defense in front of him. I knew he was going to be a Vezina caliber kind of goalie again. So I knew it was never the talent. It was just where he was at was driving him down for years. So I'm glad he's doing well. He needed it.
Changes certainly doesn't hurt. Mike, some thoughts about what Gibson has done back home in Detroit.
I mean, I say this all the time. I've said it all the time when I was working in the National Hockey League for years, and that is that if there's one position on the ice that takes considerably longer to develop, it's the goaltender position. And so it doesn't surprise me in the least that a guy like Gibson, with all his talent, is finally starting to flourish at his age. We've just seen it time and time again where teams draft goaltenders very high and then expect that they're going to come in and step into the National Hockey League at ages 18, 19, and 20 and light the world on fire. And it just doesn't happen. And the other part of it is, and the good part of it is for the Red Wings, is goaltenders last longer than other players as well. I mean, it's not uncommon for a good goaltender to play late into his 30s or even to 40 years old. So he's got some good hockey out of him, and the Red Wings have a good goaltender.
Raj, I know you're mainly into soccer. Do you want to defer on this until we get to the soccer? I only have one more hockey topic, then I'm going to hit you hard with rapid fire. Anything you want to say about the Red Wings goaltending situation?
Not really. It's about the same as in soccer, really.
What's that?
We have goalkeepers in soccer that go into their early 40s occasionally, but they have a longer life than the regular players do, without question.
Yeah, Roger, I have a question for you regarding that. Do you think with that position, soccer or hockey, it's just that you learn so much in that position that it takes time?
I think it's a totally different skill set altogether, isn't it, from the rest of the team?
I mean, I look at soccer and like penalty kicks, for instance. I mean, I think you learn so much from, even the opponents, right? And their tendencies and things like that. And it's the same thing for goalies with, penalty shots and breakaways and knowing what guys like to shoot the puck. It's just one of those positions. I just think it takes longer.
Yeah, there's so much data available too to a goalkeeper going into a shootout situation at the end of a game. He's got to remember and be able to pull up all that research that he did before the match and as to what the tendencies of the opposition are, and he's got to have just fantastic reflexes. The reflexes have just got to be instinctive.
So Mike, I played goalkeeper growing up. I was all league in high school and everything, and actually I was surprised I'm pretty good at penalty kicks. I actually blocked more than I let in high school.
That's an art. That's difficult to do.
It is very difficult, and I even saved my team in a playoff game where we went 11 rounds.
Wow.
And let's just say if it wasn't for me, we would have lost in that round.
Sure.
But sometimes it's not often with hockey. I know it's differently because usually when the shooters are going in hockey on a penalty shot or on a shootout, they're not looking where they're going. In soccer, you kind of look, because usually when the player in soccer, when they place that ball in the penalty spot, they tend to look where they're going to go. And then you also watch their approach and watch how they even plant their foot and how they turn. Because some of them will plant, and then if you turn this way, they're going to go, as I say, keeper's left. Or if they turn their hip a little bit more, they're going to go on my right. So there's a lot of tendencies you watch for. And it does take a lot of practice to really craft that to be able to tell where they're going to go.
You're absolutely right. You got to make that decision before the ball is played. You can't wait until the shot occurs to make your move as a goalkeeper. It's too late. You have to anticipate from the run up and the body weight and the body distribution. You take all those things into account, and then you make an educated guess, and half the time it's wrong.
And when you do that educated guess, you go 100%. You don't go 50, you go 100 because So like I said, I was a goalkeeper. I love playing it. A lot of my friends said I made the position look easy.
Good for you.
Yeah, I can't do it now, but
imagine if NHL goalkeepers, like on a penalty shot, couldn't leave the goal line until the shooter shot the puck. Like that's to me, that's amazing for goalkeepers in soccer. Like on a penalty kick, they can't move, right? I mean, until the ball is struck.
You got to stay on the line.
You can move side to side, but your heels have to stay on the line.
Yeah.
I was completely behind, and I would sway back and forth, and as they're going, if I knew they were going a certain way, I would jump that way on purpose to make them change their mind last second, because it's like a mind game. And they're like, oh, crap, he's going where I'm going to shoot. Then they got to change last second, and they end up missing the goal completely. So it's kind of like a mind thing.
So I don't want to keep this going, but this is very interesting to me because my background in hockey, it's the shooter that's looking for the goalkeeper to make the commitment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that's the goalkeeper that's looking for the shooter to make the commitment.
It's both. It's really both. But because I'm speaking as a goalkeeper, what I was looking for, and if I was shooting, I went one way every time, but I knew where to shoot. And as a goalkeeper, I was able to tell where goalkeepers are going to go. I would think in my head it was like a catcher in baseball, like okay, what pitch is he like? What pitch would I call on this count? It's like something like that.
Now you're talking my language there.
Yeah, so that's why I'm got to put in baseball terms.
You're talking my language when you're talking catcher.
Yeah, I was a catcher in baseball. I was a catcher in baseball too.
Talking my language, talk catcher.
Yeah,
I'll tell you. You talk to the people that were my teammates. I had a lot of concussions back in the day, and I still got whacked everywhere. But I loved every second because I was always into the game. One more hockey topic I want to get to, then I want to roll through the soccer material because there is a lot of it. Bob Pulford recently passed away, Hall of Famer, who won 4 Stanley Cups with the Toronto Maple Leafs at the age of 89. What are your recollections, Mike, of Bob Pulford? I think he was with the Kings too, if I remember correctly. He was with the Kings and the Maple Leafs, but Bob Pulford gone at the age of 89.
I mean, well, first of all, I'm actually friends with his son, Rob Pulford, and we work together.
Okay.
With hockey operations. So, but his dad, as a player, was a real honest player. There's actually a famous or an infamous clip of him getting into a fight in the penalty box with one of the Montreal Canadiens. I don't recall who it was now, but he was just a real honest, tough, hard-nosed guy. And then, he carried that along into management as well. He spent probably most of his management career actually with the Chicago Blackhawks in a number of positions, including general manager. But I think the biggest thing he did for the game was he was one of the people that started the NHL Players Association, which has meant so much to those players through years. So, I mean, he certainly leaves a great legacy of, as a player. I'm not sure if he coached, but certainly in management, and then what he did for players, then and still today with, beginning the NHL Players Association.
Cody, do you know anything about Bob Pulford or not? Probably a little before your time, probably.
No, I have no reference to this. This was well before my time.
All right, that's fine. That's okay. Well, he's obviously, I know he's with the Kings and the Blackhawks, did what he did with the Maple Leafs. Anyway, nevertheless, Bob Pulford, rest in peace, dead at the age of 89. Let's go to our featured topic of the day, and that's obviously in the title. Stadiums rejected from the 2026 FIFA World Cup. I'm going to list a lot of the stadiums, and I look at a lot of them. There's some NFL ones as well, and I'll list them by their capacities. And Roger, I want you to take the lead on it when I go, and then everybody can follow suit. Okay, Toronto with a capacity of 41,000, that was rejected. Puebla, 51,726. Montreal, 56,040. Guadalajara, 56,713. Chicago, referencing Soldier Field, 61,500. Mexico City, 63,186. Glendale, obviously where the Cardinals play, 63,400. Landover, 64,000. Las Vegas, 65,000. Cincinnati, 65,515. Minneapolis, 66,202. Indianapolis, 67,000. Baltimore, 70,745. Even the New Orleans Superdome is on this list, 73,208. Then you have Charlotte, 75,037, and Denver, 76,125. Now, keep in mind, there's 16 stadiums across the United States, but Chicago, Minneapolis, and Montreal withdrew due to financial risk. So I gave you that list, Roger, all of them. Which ones do you feel should not have been rejected on this list?
That's something I haven't really thought about, but it's a very difficult decision for FIFA to make. It requires a tremendous commitment from the host city, and you have to know whether they were going to make that commitment. The security costs are enormous. They get ultimately paid by the government or by the operating committee, but you have to upfront those costs, and those costs are enormous for the local host committee. So there's a lot of things going off behind the scenes that go into the decision as to whether a stadium's used or not. But I mean, we were very fortunate. We were the only indoor stadium to ever put natural grass in for a World Cup game. That was the first thing we did at the Silverdome back in 1994, the first ever stadium to do that. People thought it was remarkable that we were given World Cup games, but we had corporate interest, and you have to harness the corporate interest. You have to harness the government support, and as a whole raft of things go into the decision. Beyond just the number of seats and the size of the field, there's a lot of things go into the decision.
Mike,
Scott,
your thoughts?
When you go through that list, there's one thing you've got to consider, and that this tournament probably next to the Olympic Games is the largest international competition in the world. And so you've got to have cities where people from all over the world can travel easily into, especially airports. So in North America, those places are certainly New York, Miami, Houston, Texas, on the West Coast, again, places like LA. So a number of those cities, I've just off the top of my head, Cincinnati, New Orleans, you're not going to get a direct flight from Paris, never mind from Qatar, right? I think that's the first thing. Some of the cities that you mentioned, Toronto, for instance, which certainly has an international airport that could bring people in from all over the world, they just don't have the seating capacity. I would think that for a tournament like this, you certainly need at least 60,000 seats, and they'd probably want as big as possible. And especially with this year's event being in North America, I think you're going to see more people travel to this event than maybe ever before for a World Cup. And that's just my thoughts as to how they select the
Absolutely. They had 500 million applications for tickets from around the world. The United States was a major applicant country, but so were Britain and Germany and Brazil. Just an enormous number of people will be coming in. And those factors that you mentioned, the airport and the local transportation capacity, those are very, very important factors in determining where you put the games. So it was a very long decision process as to making that decision.
Yeah, the Rose Bowl is definitely a venue that's always considered for one of them. And Hard Rock Stadium here in Miami is always going to be a big target. And of course, they have the airport in both LA, and you also have it in Miami as well. So, Cody, your thoughts about the ones that were rejected? I mean, you got Las Vegas is starting to get bigger, but I don't know if it compares to the other ones.
Yeah, some of the stadiums probably can't, like as Mike's saying, probably can't have a soccer field on the in their stadium because it might be too big or too wide, or or with the seating capacity. You said Toronto doesn't get it, right? You said Toronto.
Yeah, that venue that whole 41,000.
Okay, because it
if
says
they
here
went
on
to
the
the Sky Dome.
It says Toronto Stadium. It has 2 games that can be playing in the World Cup. So
Toronto is in. Yeah. BMO Field in Toronto.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a smaller capacity stadium, isn't it? BMO Field.
It's 45,000. Yeah. So I think it's one of the smaller ones, but
exactly.
there's two games that's gonna be playing there, but I think they also had to have like certain things because I forgot which. I want to say it was like not Pro Bowl, but it was like another like all-star event, something like that, saying like, hey, like they got to have like certain amenities to host these, like hotels, restaurants. Like I think one of them was like, activities for people to do while they're visiting these certain areas, golf courses. I know all of these are like big things that like a lot of players or people look for when they're traveling too. So I think they also probably did the same thing with like, hey, if you have all these things and you have enough of a seating capacity and you can host a soccer match here, then yes, and here you go. We will put you in. But maybe a lot of these places didn't check off all those boxes, and maybe that's why they got rejected.
Right.
FIFA and the organizers, they do site visits way in advance of this whole process, and they spend 2 or 3 days in the potential host cities, and you go over every detail, and everything has to be right. Local transportation is a key factor. We had a problem here. We had to create our own local transportation because there isn't any in Detroit. We have no, we're a car city. If you go to a World Cup game in Florence, in Italy, or in Stockholm, or anywhere else in the rest of the world, you would get up in your hotel at the start of the day, and you'd say, okay, where do I get the bus to the stadium? Well, you try doing that in Detroit. when we were playing at the Silverdome, there's no way you could find public transportation to get from hotels in Detroit to the Silverdome. We had to create that transportation network. But there's a lot of cities in the United States would be ruled out on the basis of not having good public transportation.
Interesting. Okay. Great stuff. All right, let's talk about the impact of Lionel Messi in the MLS. We'll lead off with you, Roger. I mean, this guy's unbelievable what he's done to transform a league like this. And obviously, Inter Miami has a world championship in their pocket, and they've built this new stadium around him as well. But Lionel Messi is just Lionel Messi. What are your thoughts about the guy?
He's remarkable. There have been certain pivotal moments that have helped MLS. World Cup in '94 obviously kicked it off. David Beckham going to Los Angeles in the '90s gave it an enormous boost. But then Messi, who is the best player in the world without any question, and is marketable. He's likable. He's a decent person. Never been any scandal surrounding him, and he has just been enormous in bringing people into stadiums right across the country, wherever he plays, whether it's in Vancouver or Montreal or Los Angeles, he sells out, and just been tremendous for the sport. And they go to see Messi, but they finish up liking the game, and that's what he's done for soccer. And there are many other good players in the league, but they're not quite at the caliber that he is. He is just remarkable.
Mike?
I think Roger's comments about Messi are right on point. As somebody who lives in South Florida, he certainly was a big reason why I became a bigger soccer fan. I think what's really interesting too, and what was really key for him being in the MLS and helping the MLS in North America is obviously the MLS is a step down in competition than maybe he's used to or has been used to. And so you could go watch Messi play here, and I did, and you could almost count on the fact that he was going to score in that game. And that's what people, at least in North America, who don't know a lot about the sport, but want to go to see this phenom, to, see this name that they've been told about. They want to go there, and especially if they don't understand the sport, they want to see him score. And I know the first Miami game that I went to, he scored twice. And in that sport, that's not going to happen. And he did the same thing on the road, right? I mean, he filled road stadiums, and people went to see him play, and he didn't disappoint because, people who don't know as much about the game or the finer points of the game could watch him. And if he didn't score, they probably wouldn't get all the things that he does on the field, including setting up other players or his anticipation and the things he can do, the dribbling he can do with the ball. But when he scores a goal, they know. And I think that's been really, really an interesting thing about him is he came to MLS, and no matter where you go see him play, you can almost count on him scoring.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's right. Absolutely right. But as you say, he then once they've got the taste of that, then they begin to appreciate Jorge Alba and Suarez and some of the other players that are playing around him and what their skills are. And once you begin to understand that, then you begin to understand the beauty of the sport.
Sure. I mean, that's to add to that. I mean, what do people complain about in every sport in this country? There's not enough scoring. People think it's just soccer. It's the same in everything. Like there was hockey, they had to change rules in hockey because they weren't scoring enough. Yeah. Baseball, they had to juice up the ball because there weren't enough home runs. Like it's in every sport, right? NBA, they put in the 3-point line. Like that's just something that in this country they just want scoring.
Yeah, I know. But I was listening to a game this afternoon. Actually, I was not watching it, but I could have watched it. But I was listening to it, and it was Arsenal playing Brentford, and they said at the end that was the best 1-1 game I've ever seen. 1-1, and it was a brilliant game, brilliant goalkeeping, brilliant movement on the field, brilliant passing, just a very, very well played game, and. Somehow or other that this is an instant gratification society we live in here. We got short attention spans, and we have to have goals and we have to have points, and 142 to 124 in basketball, that's about right.
Now, I always appreciated the low scoring games with soccer because I always loved, like I said, I played the game, I enjoy watching it. And sometimes those 0-0 games can be some of the most entertaining games to watch. Like just the tactics they use, the passing, the playmaking they do, and how they set up the attack and the counterattack. Some of those things to me are just so fun to watch. And honestly, I'd rather see a 0-0 game than watch the Super Bowl we just had. Like I like 10 out of 10 times I'd much rather see a 0-0 football match than that last Super Bowl.
It seems to me that with ice hockey playoff games, when you get into the playoffs, the scoring gets
tell me how you.
Yeah. The checking gets tighter, and people pay more attention to.
You get 2-1 games and 3-1 games, and not the blowouts that you might normally see. And people love those games, even though they're low scoring.
Yeah. Well, I have a funny story for you. So when I was working for the New York Islanders, we had our scouting meetings, and of course we have, scouts all over the world. And so all of our international scouts were coming into town for the meeting. We had scouts from Sweden and Finland and Russia and Czech Republic. And so as a treat one night, I took them to a New York Mets baseball game. And, these guys know nothing about baseball. And the game was scoreless, and it was about the 6th inning. And these guys were like, okay, we've seen enough. Like, let's go back to the hotel. Let's go home. So we get in the car, and I put the game on the radio, and we're driving out of the parking lot. And all of a sudden the announcer says, "It's a grand slam." And the scouts are like, "What was that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing."
Oh, that's funny.
All right, so I got a question strictly for Roger, okay? Because I got some. This is only for Roger because we'll have time to do it other times. I want to get some. Roger, what are your thoughts about the NFL growing its overseas operations with 9 international games? And we'll get to this another time with the three of us. But he's got some other stuff I need to get to. 9 international games, Raj. And after all, we all know soccer trying to brand themselves in the U.S.
It's interesting. It's interesting. They for many years they played.
Any thoughts about that, Roger?
They played preseason games, and people would turn up in Wembley Stadium in London to see a really strong NFL team, and then realize that all the players were gone at the end of the first quarter, and you weren't going to see the stars again for the rest of the game, and they couldn't get away with that after a first couple of years. Right. The people in London understood that they wanted to see the real players playing a real game, not a Mickey Mouse preseason game. And those preseason games have become even more meaningless in the last few years. So it's interesting. Right. I'd love to see a team in England playing in the NFL. I think the logistics would be rather difficult. I think probably they'd have to come here and play a couple of games and stay here for a couple of weeks and play 2 games and then go back and play. But it would be difficult. But I think the market is there. I think the interest is there. And I think they watch games on TV now, and they watch the Super Bowl. Not as many as watch the World Cup final, but they watch those games. You're laughing.
You see, I like the way you describe that as Mickey Mouse football games out there in preseason. That's pretty good. All right, I'll tell you what, Mike and Cody, do you have a brief thought on it? I have a few other topics I need to get to before we call it a night, since I have a hard out by Mr. MS, okay? I have to get to some of the important ones. You have any thoughts about 9 international games in the NFL? Mike?
I think it's great. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
I think world's
Well, go ahead, Cody. You started.
No, go ahead, Mike.
The world's a smaller place these days, right? And so I think all sports, at least those that are based here in North America, are trying to expand their grasp on international audiences and the money and the revenue that they can bring in from playing internationally. I don't think it's really too far in the distance that we're going to have leagues that are going to have that type of that expansion, where you may not be playing teams from Europe on a weekly basis, but they'll figure a way to schedule it so that teams can go to different continents and play games over a period of a couple of weeks or a month. But I think it's just it's the way we have to head. I mean, let's face it, we whether it's baseball in this country or football or basketball, or we call ourselves world champions when we're not really world champions. So, the only world champions are, those that go to the Olympics or the FIFA World Cup or those types of events, right? So I think it's just a natural progression of where sports are going and how the world, especially with the way we travel today, with things like the internet, it's just a smaller place.
I think that's right. Absolutely right.
I think it's great for the game. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Roger.
I was going to say, I love to talk about soccer. It's been a major part of my life, but it's only been a bit of it. I was never a soccer player. I was a tennis player, and played a little bit on the international tour. And got into soccer accidentally. I love talking about it and I love being in it, but now I got soccer stamped across my forehead here, and there's been a little bit more to my life than that. There was a lot of debate about the book when I'll tell you why it came about. It seems a very arrogant thing to do, to write a biography. Terribly arrogant thing to do. I wrote it because I knew nothing about my father. My father was 40 years old when he came back from the war, and I was 7. And I'd missed the first 40 years of his life. And he lived through the Depression, and he went on a troop ship through the Mediterranean to Iraq with torpedoes coming at him from different directions. And I knew nothing of that story. And so I decided I was going to write for my kids what happened to me. They only know me since I came to the United States. They don't know anything of what happened in my life prior to that, playing on the international tennis tour and different things, traveling. And so I wrote the book for that reason. And then my wife, who was the daughter of a guy named J.P. McCarthy, who you would know, Scott, she had an instinct.
Yeah, I remember J.P. real well.
Yeah, she read my book. She wouldn't read it while I was writing it. When she read it, and one day I came home and there was a typed note on my typewriter, and from her, and it said, "This is amazing. Publish, publish, publish. I feel like I was with you every step of the way. You have to publish it." And I hadn't really thought of doing that, but I approached publishers and we got it done. But talking about my life is something that's not very comfortable to me. I mean, we grow up in England where modesty and self-effacing qualities are priorities. And to be talking about what I've achieved or what I've done seems totally out of character. But I have to do that if I'm going to sell this book. So now I'm in the process. But I just wanted to clarify that there's a little bit more to my life.
Let me go ahead and interrupt you. Let me interrupt you for a moment, Roger. Yeah, I'm sorry, Roger. Let me interrupt you for a moment if I can preface everything to our audience out there. Well, first of all, what is the name of the book and where can they buy it? And what motivated you to want to do it? I'm glad you brought that up. That was the segment in here, but I'm glad that you went out there and brought it up a little quicker. Go ahead. You can't get
there from here, is what it's called. My soccer journey from Derby to Detroit. Originally, I wanted to be my journey from Derby to Detroit, but this is a World Cup year, and the majority of the book is about soccer. It's about the founding of the Detroit Express, the creation of the World Cup in Detroit, So we called it My Soccer Journey from Derby to Detroit. But it's available. It's available globally. It's on sale in England with Amazon and Brookstones and Waterstones, and it's available everywhere in the United States online retailing online. It probably won't be in many bookstores per se, because they don't buy huge amounts of books that put them on the shelves on spec. But it's online at every retailer. Sells at $25.95 for hard copy and $19.95 for a soft cover. And it's gone remarkably well. It's been in the top 20 of soccer biographies from the day that it was put on pre-order. It actually comes out on February 24th is when it's released from the publishers, but the people have been buying it, and you got great reviews in Soccer America, and they quoted parts of it, ran parts of it. So it looks as if it's going to be okay. It's going to do all right. I'm not going to make a fortune out of it. No, I'm certainly not going to retire on it because I'm already retired. But it's doing quite well. I'm remarkably pleased at the way it's come out. Lots of stories in there.
Well, every time you come on here, you're going to have an opportunity to promote it. So you better come up with some new things every time I bring you on here to talk about it. So I'm going to I'll give you homework. When you come on again, you got to come. I'm going to have you go out there and come up with one chapter that you're going to preview. How's that sound when you come on here? Then we'll try to get the cash register rolling. So, and so that I'm going to go ahead and move. I'm good. I got a method for my madness here. You've known me forever anyways. So here's what we're going to do. I want to chronicle your journey, and I'm going to let Mike and Cody ask you questions. Obviously, you founded the Detroit Express of the North American Soccer League. Why don't you tell everybody what that was all about, the Detroit Express? I know you had a player on there by the name of Trevor Francis, who was loaned during the summer, later in the summer. But let's talk about your journey with the Detroit Express and what was that like to found a team like that?
It was interesting. As I mentioned, I was a tennis player, and I was playing tennis one day down at the Franklin Racket Club. And the general manager down there was an Englishman named Gordon Preston. Gordon Preston claimed he'd played for Bolton Wanderers professionally in England, although his son said every time I saw him kick a ball, he fell over. But he was into soccer. He was into soccer promotion. And naturally, two Englishmen get together, they're going to talk about soccer. And that's what we did at the Franklin Racket Club. And Gordon said, I'm thinking of putting on a game between Coventry City from England and Hertha of Berlin. And we're going to do it at Keyworth Stadium, which is now where Detroit City FC play. And Gordon said, do you want to get involved as an investor? And I said, yeah, I'll get involved. And I went down to the first meeting. And all they did at that meeting was they talk about the ethnic newspapers they were going to advertise in. We're going to be in the German newspaper in Warren, and we're going to be in the Spanish newspapers, because that's who they thought they were selling the game to. And I said, well, why don't we try to get Americans to come to the game? And it was like, lightning hit. And so we put on the game, and we did get a good crowd, 10,000, 9,000 crowd, which is the capacity of the stadium. And then we didn't do anything for a few years after that. And then 1970 was the World Cup out of Mexico. And we bought the right to televise the World Cup out of Mexico in Michigan for $5,000. I think it cost probably a tad more than $5,000 to get the rights to the World Cup today. But we did it, and we staged the games at the Masonic Auditorium, very successful. So then I started getting calls from people about putting on a game at the Silverdome, which was opened in 1975. And I knew Lamar Hunt at Dallas through tennis, and I called Dallas and asked if they wanted to come in, and Gordon called the New York Cosmos. And so we put on a game at the Silverdome with Pele and the New York Cosmos and Kyle Rote Jr. And the Dallas Tornado at the Silverdome. And the money we had to raise was probably 10 times the revenue that any soccer game had ever generated in Michigan. we had to raise $85,000 of investment capital, which we were able to do, and we made money. And so within a couple of weeks of that, I was getting calls from Steve Ross at Warner Communications and Lamar Hunt at Dallas and the commissioner of the league, Phil Woosnam, saying, why don't you put together a team in Detroit? And that was another lightning bolt. I really hadn't thought about doing that, but we started to work on doing it and made it happen and put the team into the Silverdome, raised about $4 million to do it, and buy a franchise and put it in the Silverdome. But I had an English partner who was named Jimmy Hill, who it was kind of the Howard Cosell of English soccer. He played, he was a manager, he revolutionized the sport. He got rid of the maximum wage, which was £20 or $30 a week was the maximum wage for a football player. He got rid of that when he headed up the union. And he came in as a partner of mine in Detroit. And as you say, we brought in Trevor Francis, who was an absolutely marvelous player. We had a very good team, won the Central Conference in the first season. But at the end of the second year, Jimmy Hill had, as he had planned all along, realized there was a golden rule that he knew and I didn't, which was whoever has the goal rules. And so he offered to put in another $1 million when we needed extra money if I would get rid of Gordon as my partner, and I did, regrettably. And then having done that, he then moved on to me, and then to our third partner, who was a guy named Sonny Van Arnhem, now lives in, or did live in Florida, real estate developer. You remember him? And Jimmy Hill gradually, financially forced all three of us out as general partners. And then he moved the team to Washington, where it went out of business. Absolutely disgraceful departure from Washington. Yeah. They closed the doors, and the head coach came in on a Monday morning and didn't know that the team had gone. They'd flown the players back to England, and the ownership had gone back to England, and that was the end of the Express. And it was doing remarkably well in the Silverdome. We'd had crowds of over 30,000, not every game, but we were doing well comparatively with the league. But then the league itself had overextended itself, had got carried away by the success of the New York Cosmos and Minnesota and Tampa. And we went into the 1981 recession, and the league gradually shrank. Obviously, since then, with World Cup in '94 and with MLS in the 2000s, it's gone from strength to strength. And the players are much better than we've ever seen before playing for the United States team. And so it's been fun. It's been fun to be part of something that grew. If I'd come to this country and soccer was already the preeminent sport, I would never have got involved. But there was such a pioneering spirit of all the people that were building it from the ground up, and we all shared in that pride in what we were doing, that it was just a lot of fun. That's the capsule experience.
Yeah, they had a good thing going for them. One quick question, I'm going to turn over to Cody and Mike. Why doesn't Detroit have an MLS team? I know they talked about the jail site. They wanted exclusive there, but then they had Ford Field that they can use. It seems like there's a double standard with some of these stadiums, because some of them will allow them to play in NFL stadiums while the other ones don't. I was in Atlanta, and they'll allow that team in Seattle, and yet some of them want soccer stadium. But why doesn't Detroit have an MLS team, especially knowing what you just said about the Express doing well? That to me is very mind-boggling.
It should have, and we got so close. I was involved in trying to put a team together after World Cup in '94. MLS began in '96. We made some efforts to do it, but we didn't see a stadium at that time that was appropriate for it. Then the Tom Gores, who owns the Pistons, and got involved, and Dan Gilbert, who has done so much to rebuild Detroit from a business standpoint. He and Tom Gores decided they'd like to have an MLS team. And there's a guy named Arn Tellem, who was actually the agent that was used in that television program about I can't remember what it was called now, but about the agent was based on Arn Tellem. Arn Tellem was a very successful attorney, and he was put in Detroit to help run the Pistons. And he and Tom Gores and myself, I was involved with them to an extent as a consultant. We met with MLS. They came in. They were going to build on the jail site. They had a plan to build a $1 billion stadium on the old Wayne County jail site. And then they switched. For some reason, they switched to the idea of playing at Ford Field. And when they said they wanted to play at Ford Field,
right,
and Don Garber, the commissioner of the league, started talking to us about, well, taking the roof off and retrofitting it and making it an open air stadium, which was totally nonsense. I mean, it would have been incredibly expensive and impossible to do. And gradually, when they went away from the idea of doing a dedicated stadium on the jail site, the league lost interest, and Tom Gores and Dan Gilbert lost interest, and so it went away. It was a shame because we're the biggest city now that's left out of MLS, and we were, when FIFA picked us to be a World Cup city, one of the 9 World Cup cities, it was because we were one of the strongest soccer cities in the country. We had the people, we had the heritage, we had the love of the game, we had proven attendances, but it just didn't happen. And we should be in the league, but we're not going to be now because Detroit City is in the USL, which is the 2nd division, doing extremely well. And they are planning to build a 15,000 seat stadium in Mexican town in the middle of Detroit. And that kind of precludes MLS, which would have to absorb or otherwise wipe out Detroit City. So we're in a catch-22 situation now.
The stadium was built.
The stadium
was built on the hospital site. My grandfather actually had a heart attack when he had a furniture store.
Yeah, that should open.
Was it Southwest General Hospital right out? Yeah, I know where that's at.
Yes, very near to the train station.
Let me open it up real quick. Yeah, near Verner Highway, if I remember correctly, not too far from there. I had a grandfather. Let me open it real quickly to Cody. You have a question or two? Oh, sorry, Roger. I want to make sure Mike and Cody get a couple questions in. Go ahead, Cody. You have a couple quick questions for Roger about everything we've talked about. I want to make sure we got the Detroit part in because that's where Roger's based out of. And, of course, we have his book. And when we bring you on the next time, Roger, we'll give you probably a 5 or 10 minute dedicated period to talk about your book because I want to learn more about it. Yeah. And hopefully we can be a distributor to help you sell it. How does that sound? So, all right, Cody, you have 1 or 2 quick questions for Roger?
Yeah, just one's a soccer question and one is more about you. Where are you originally from? Because I could tell you have an accent. And who's your favorite club?
Well, you guys have the accents. I'm English. I'm from Derby. Derby County features in my book. I was. Most people don't know when they became a supporter of a team, but I became a supporter of Derby County on April the 27th of 1946. My father had just come back from the war. I barely knew him. We went on vacation and we listened to the FA Cup final that Derby County won, the only major competition they've ever won in their career. And they've been going since 1884. And we listened to that on a little wooden radio in a town called Bournemouth in 1946. And I was a Derby County fan from that day and have been ever since. I was never a soccer player, really. I played center forward for my high school team, and the kid that played inside left, named Mick Walker, played for England Boys. He was a genius. I thought he was Messi. He was absolutely remarkable. He used to send me these through passes, which would leave me one-on-one with the goalkeeper and 30 yards away from goal. And I had to ask him to stop doing that because it was embarrassing. I'd only score 1 in 3.
Hey, at least you scored 1 out of 3.
I scored 1 out of 3, but I mean, to be one-on-one with the goalkeeper and 30 yards out is a little embarrassing.
Yeah. Who's your Premier League club now?
Derby County.
Are they in the Premier League right now?
They're in the second division. They're in the second division.
How do you like my Chelsea hat?
Chelsea?
So, Roger, how do you like my Chelsea cap? Tell me what you really think of it.
I love Chelsea. I love Chelsea.
That's my favorite club. I'm a Chelsea fan.
I visited there last year on my vacation.
Did you really?
I became a Chelsea fan because, number one, I didn't have a team to pull for, and I liked the colors, and they reminded me of the Lions, and they're named the Lions. They were convinced. Now that's the official cap for Thursday night here with Mike and Cody and you, as I have to have Chelsea unless you can get me some other old cap in the future. It worked out pretty well. So, all right, Mike, go ahead. I know you patiently waited. Mike, can you remember me? Huh? Mike, can you go 9:05? Or do you have to be out at 9?
I'll go 9:05. I'm actually, I'm headed to Austin, Texas tomorrow to run a marathon.
Well, these are your questions, anyways.
I've got three questions for you, Roger.
Oh wow!
The first is, for a country like the USA that's always held itself out to be, a power and a beacon for the free world, why has it taken this country so long to love soccer, which is the world's most popular team sport?
Well, we've always prided ourselves, and I am a citizen, so I say ourselves, on our exceptionalism. Mm-hmm. And we also have this mantra, not invented here. And if something wasn't invented here, we don't necessarily appreciate it.
Yeah.
And there is a feeling in America, which I don't subscribe to, that everything is better here than the rest of the world. And that the rest of the world doesn't really have a lot to offer us. Yeah. And it's a very misguided belief. The United States is great. So are a lot of other countries. But not invented here, I think, is part of the rationale. And of course, we went our own way with American football, which is really a version of rugby in many respects. And we went our own way with baseball, which was based on an English game called rounders, which girls play and some boys play. And ice hockey, I'm not sure where that came from, but it's strange. It's strange that we were isolated in the development of those sports too. There wasn't much international travel between Europe and the United States, so teams didn't come over here to play very much. So we developed our own sports and very successfully. But now we're back into the fold, and it's kind of fun because winning, you do get tired of winning, despite what Trump says. And we win at everything, and we can't win at soccer, and it makes it even more interesting to follow it and see whether we can actually get there. We may get there in the end, but we've been trying for a long time, and we haven't become number one in the world.
That's a good segue to my next question, and that's that women's soccer in the United States has found success quicker than men's soccer. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. I think one was Title IX, which said you had to spend money on women's sports. And so we had this massive amount of women's college teams, and some of them were tremendous. North Carolina under Anson Dorrance and others just developed tremendous soccer programs, far in excess of the programs for women's soccer in other countries of the world. So we were way ahead for a long time. The rest of the world is beginning to catch up now. I was at the first ever Women's World Cup in China in 1991, and really went over there to lobby for us to get World Cup in Detroit in '94. I didn't expect anything in terms of quality. The tournament was fantastic. The United States team was fantastic and won the first ever Women's World Cup. And the other countries of the world were just nascent. They were just beginning to get programs. Now they're catching up. And so the next Women's World Cup will be phenomenally exciting because Brazil are great and England are great and France are great and Germany are great. The United States is great, but we just don't dominate the way we did with that early start from Title IX.
Japan's good too.
Yeah.
Yes.
My final question, as someone who's, I consider myself still a new soccer fan. I chose to follow the Portuguese Premier League, to learn about the game, and instead of just jumping in and picking a team in the Premier League and watching them on TV in the morning on NBC. What do you think is the best way, especially for somebody older like myself, to start to learn about soccer and become a fan of the sport, especially professionally?
Well, I think it's not as difficult to learn about soccer as people tend to think. I think soccer and ice hockey are games of space and using space and creating space for yourself and creating movements and passing movements and so on. I don't consider myself a soccer expert in any respect. I mean, nobody would ever ask me to pick a team and put together a 4-4-2 or a different formation to get the best out of the players. 95% of the game is extraordinarily simple. The other 5% is mind-bogglingly complicated, and I've never understood the other 5%. I did sit once between the England manager and the United States manager, Bora Milutinovic, at a banquet at the Renaissance Hotel in Detroit. And the two of them were drawing on napkins on either side of me, drawing strategies and defensive patterns, and I was completely lost, totally incomprehensible. But the 95% of it that's very simple and very obvious is contagious. And once you give yourself a chance to enjoy it, you will enjoy it, I think. That's my 6 pence worth.
You good? You good, Mike?
Yeah, until next week.
So here's what we can do, Roger. How about this? And on a couple, I'll tell you what, Roger, I got an idea if you're interested, okay? Would you like to come on next Thursday night? And I'll talk about some of the stadiums that were approved, and then we'll expand on your, but I'm going to give you a homework assignment. You have to come up with 1 or 2 chapters in that book of yours that we can promote. Is that fair enough? Do you want to do this next week, next Thursday night?
I'll have to check my calendar.
It's not past your bedtime, is it? I hope. Just kidding.
I can probably do that, but I'll have to check
next week. How'd you guys like that?
We'll
bring on Roger next week, and we're going to talk about the stadiums that did go ahead and get picked. But he's got to come up with 1 or 2 chapters, because now, Roger, now that you're invited, now you're in the Sports Rap Club, you got to go out there and become salesman, okay, for your book, and make sure you put that thing high enough so we can see it.
I know.
Aren't as good as they were back in the 70s when you.
I thought the writing the book was the hard part. The marketing is the hard part.
So what we'll do is, yeah, but you got built-in friend from the 70s. I'll tell you what, we're going to show you how to do it right now, real quick, Mike. Candy, come on and give him an idea how we promote our book so we can get his on there. And then and we'll actually, maybe she could go ahead and get a copy of yours to put it on the screen. We'll work on that before we get you on. How's that, Rod? Thanks, Mike, for hanging in there another minute or two. I want to make sure you got your questions in. Go ahead, Candy. I'm not saying a word for 30 seconds. Go ahead, Candy.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved, old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. If you're looking for the audio version, it's available out there too. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And last but not least, if you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family, and then turn on your notifications so you're notified every time we go live. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Well, Mike gave us the extra 5 minutes. We appreciate it. We're glad to have, obviously, Roger on today. And I'll tell you what, Roger, if you're able to make it next Thursday, then find a chapter or two, and we'll see if we can get you some sort of a picture, and you can send it to us, and we'll put it on there and make it a little easier for you. How's that sound? We appreciate you coming on tonight with Cody, myself, Mike, and Candy. And it's so good to be able to go out there and renew acquaintances. Yeah, Fire Up is coming up here after Sports Wrap. So, Roger, thanks again. Good seeing you. And guess what? It won't be as long. Obviously, when I see you the next, because it'll be next Thursday night. If not, and you get busy, we'll just plan on it 2 Thursdays. All right. So, Cody, let everybody know how they get a hold of you real quick. Thanks, Roger.
Follow us.
We appreciate it. Glad to have you as our soccer analyst. Go ahead. So, sorry.
You can follow us at Royally Quacked on all social media, and this week will be our 100th episode. So, we're gonna be breaking down if we combine both the Ducks and Kings team and make them one team right now, and to see if they can contend for a Stanley Cup. So that'll be coming up this year or this next week. So looking forward to our 100th episode.
Well, so now next episode with Roger, we're going to talk about some of the team stadiums that did make the cut, since we talked about the ones that didn't. So on behalf of Mike Santos, Cody Spink, and our soccer analyst Roger Faulkner, my name is Scott Morgan. We're at the Motor City Madmouth. We're in a Chelsea hat, by the way. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you on Saturday. We're going to have a couple of programs. We got Inside the Pigskin and Talking Baseball coming up. But Roger, thanks again for being on. Looking forward to working with you, my friend. You were great, and I knew you provided some great expertise about soccer in Metro Detroit. But now we're going to really make this thing more wide open with us going forward. Thanks again, Roger, for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye now. Fire Up is next.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye now.